And so I think we all pretty much know each other here. So Nick, if you want to go ahead and take it away, then
Sure, fantastic.
I'm hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I really appreciate being here. And I love this material. I love talking about it. And the discussion format is always the most interesting part of the workshops when we do workshops on this. And so I really appreciate doing this in a discussion format. So I'll talk a little bit just to make sure the context is set, so we're all on the same page, not make any assumptions about context. And just a little bit about me. I mean, I know everybody here, but I do, I teach at SOU. I teach over in the emerging media department. I teach a sound engineering class over there. I'm working on this SEL curriculum for the education department, some workshops in the spring. And I also advise the sound engineers over in the theater department. So I'm kind of doing different stuff, meeting different folks. And I really noticed that the social emotional learning concepts and principles are really valuable all the time in everything I do. And it's really helpful to have those things informing everything I do, which leads to this idea of it being more a way of life or than really a curriculum or something taught. Even though it is a curriculum, it's a perfectly valid thing to teach. There's this other component of it, of being kind of a way of life. The other thing that's important, just to make sure when I talk about SEL, I think about it through the lens of the Castle 5 competencies. So I just want to make sure that I'm not assuming that people know what that is. So this is our only slide for today. Oops. If I could I screen share?
Yep, hold on.
Yep.
To share, hold on, all participants. Okay, you should be able to do it now.
Oh, perfect. That disappeared. There we go. There we go. Oh, there we go. So this is an organization called Castle. Amazing website, tons of resources if you're interested in social emotional learning. It's amazing in every way. And these are the 5 competencies that they've identified as being core to the idea of social emotional learning. And these are really, they're essential to social emotional learning, and they're also essential to the health and well-being of young people, and really everybody. So when I talk about social emotional learning and I reference these 5, that's what I'm talking about. And the other thing is just a little bit about the origin story, kind of how I came to this approach to this, thinking of it as a way of life. It was about 1.5 years ago, and I was doing some, I started doing support circles and connection circles in the junior high environment. I was working for a mentoring organization, and they were doing support circles in a local middle school. And that was a whole new experience for me. I have a lot of experience with circle work, with men's work and mixed gender and young people, but I had never done anything like that in middle school. And actually, I hadn't actually been to middle school since I was in middle school. So there was kind of a new thing there. That was a while ago when I was in middle school. So I was quite intimidated going in there. I felt all my middle school trauma coming up. So after the first day of doing that, it was really satisfying, but that was an amazingly challenging day for me. It was so far beyond anything I'd ever experienced. Just classroom management in the middle school environment is really an incredible thing. And it was amazing. It was an amazing learning experience. I probably learned more per minute in a middle school classroom than I've ever learned per minute any other environment I've ever been in. It's just this fire hose of data. It's an amazing experience, but but it was hard. And then after that, I was sitting in my car after the day was over. We did a whole afternoon of these circles, and I was sitting in my car going, wow, Nick, man, you're gonna need something, a new plan here. This is gonna be a long 3 months if you're not handling this better. And so I was doing some work on SEL at the time, and there was just the notes on the Castle 5 were sitting there. And I looked at that list, and it just suddenly was a different thing. I just realized that this is something I had to do. Incorporating these skills and cultivating these skills and nourishing these skills really consciously was going to be an essential part of my ability to even have a chance of succeeding in this environment that was so challenging. And so just something clicked. So that's how I got to this place and started seeing it as a mode, like moment to moment, going through these 5, and for each decision I make. So every decision starting with self-awareness and then moving through, each one depends on the previous one. And then ultimately you're making decisions that are informed by all the other steps, and that's an ongoing process, moment to moment. And I just never thought of it that way. So I started thinking of it that way and incorporating that, and it really helped, because middle school students will just find they're constantly testing. They were testing me constantly. So if I was not fully integrated, if I was, hiding something, or nervous or tired or needed a snack or wasn't taking care of myself, I was going down. I was going down. So that was really amazing part of that experience. Lots of things happened there. But so that's how I arrived at that. So anything coming up? Questions? Anything? That was me talking for a while. Anything coming up for folks? Okay. So I want to do kind of focus on self-awareness today, the first one, because that one's really tricky, actually, to me. And so I want to get into some do a couple exercises, actually. Do an exercise, talk about it, reflect, do another one, talk about it, reflect a little bit. And then talk about those exercises relative to self-awareness, because there's a lot of challenges in the self-awareness thing. That's an easy one for me to skip over and go, oh, I'm fine, no problem. When actually, I don't know if I'm fine or not. The only way I know if I'm fine is if I ask. So the first step for that is just some breathing. So let's just do 3 minutes of just nice intentional breathing. Just slow down a little bit. You can use a breathing method if you want. That's not required. Just do something that whatever feels natural. And we'll just breathe, and then I'll set a timer and I'll call us back, and we'll check in. So it's about 3 minutes, so time to return. So I'd love to hear about anything that came up or comes up during that experience.
For me, it starts off with a nice feet flat on the ground, and just as I breathe, I notice the breath, but I also notice a feeling of groundedness and calmness. And then in the first minute or so, I start to notice sounds around me more.
Yep.
And just to be aware of kind of the air quality and the environment where I am, which, oh, here, my environment is a messy room with lots of boxes in it.
Environmental awareness. Yes.
But yeah, even with my eyes closed, I just feel the surroundings. I hear the chainsaw in the distance, a couple explosions that went off while we were doing that. And then I watch the breath, and it doesn't, like, nothing feels as stressful when I'm just watching my breath.
Fantastic. Anything else?
For me, I think I'm super sensitive at the moment with the light, and it is happened to be very sunny on my window. So closing my eyes was actually perfect time. Perfect. Yeah, that it really helped my needs. But then as I closed my eyes, I really felt more senses, like even tinglings in my feet and maybe my shoulders, and I just felt more of my body awareness. As I was thinking about your self-awareness, I think I was sitting with that notion. So I think I felt more of my body awareness. That, and also, like Robin said, calming effect with very bright outside, but then still I could close and find some kind of darkness for the good reason. So it was helpful. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a bit of my thoughts were starting to get pretty clear. You know, the longer, probably around maybe like the 2-minute mark, I was noticing that like I was paying attention to my thoughts a lot more clearly. And then towards the end, I could feel like, you know, more like tingling on my forehead. Yeah, but very, very calming. It took me a second to come out of it, even. It was like
Right.
slow opening, like, okay. All right, come back. Okay.
Fantastic.
I also had some like the tingling, the body sensation, and some also like noticing the movement of thoughts. And to a certain point of like, okay, no, come back to the breath. No, come back to the breath. But then I think maybe someone turned, maybe it was you, Nick, someone turned the microphone back on, and I kind of was like, oh, I think it's probably close to the end. But I was like, but just focus on this last breath. And it's like, even though maybe my mind was distracted for the last 3 minutes, like, even if it's just this one breath, and I did that, and then I realized that sometimes that's all it takes. And the effects of the 3 minutes were still there, but sometimes it's just that one breath at the end of just being able to focus that really helped.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm always, I've been doing this, I don't even know how long, years, maybe decades, I don't know, but I'm always startled by how much it helps. Every time I'm like, amazing, I'm breathing. Who's thought? I'm just like, I feel so much better. And it is amazing how even with the experience I have, it's amazing how much it helps every time. And it's generally, if we're thinking about doing this practice or incorporating this into anything, 3 minutes is really kind of the minimum to really get something out of it. And I do recommend that people do actually set a timer so that if you're facilitating something, you can actually just relax and have the experience. You're not having to look at the time. I have a little egg timer in my office that I use, so I don't have to interact with my phone. It's like, oh, I don't want to interact with my phone. Yeah, so that's some useful stuff there. And I think one of the things that is really important for me is that breath makes the space for self-awareness. I don't really know how to practice self-awareness without awareness of the breath. It's like the really foundational step. And for sure for me, if I don't take a moment and be aware of my breathing, I will not be in a self-awareness space. Like it's basically impossible. So that's why I start with breath when we do this. So we don't have too many people. So I think we can do just do a simple check-in. And I really like to do check-in that's called pies. Maybe you know it. It's just a moment. You just take a moment, check in with yourself, and just talk about a few sentences about how you're doing physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Nothing fancy, just a few sentences, just a couple minutes each. And I'll model. Has anybody done a pies check-in? Yeah. It's a nice format. It's easy to remember. It took me about 2 years to remember what the letters meant. I was like, pie, the thing, I don't know. But I finally did. And it's a nice, simple format. So I think it'd be good if we did that, just to have that experience. So I can start. Let's see here. So physically, actually feel okay. I think my toes are a little cold here, but the top half of me was getting hot, so I didn't want to get too hot, so I turned off the heat. So toes are a little cold. I can feel a little caffeine, but not too much. And I feel a little tension in my shoulders, maybe just a little nervous about presenting today, but not too bad. And otherwise, physically, I feel pretty good. There's some relaxation in there too. I'm happy to be here. So intellectually, I feel activated. I love doing this. I love hearing about other people's experiences. I learn tons every time I do this with other people. So I'm intellectually very stimulated and engaged. Emotionally, I feel well, I gotta say, I feel joy. This is joyful for me to do this here, to be engaged in this material with everybody here. This is really just one of the most interesting things there is in the world, this topic and the idea of self-awareness. Fascinating to me. So there's joy there. A little bit of nervousness. I was a little nervous at the beginning, but that's kind of fading, getting into a groove. And then spiritually, this is a lot of feeling. This is more of an intellectual pursuit. This isn't necessarily a spiritual pursuit. The sky was beautiful earlier today. I felt connected to that. So I feel connected enough spiritually. So I'm in with that. Would anyone else want to go?
Yeah, I can share. Physically, just got done doing the hike and we had some dinner. And so I think my body feels, worked well through and replenished, so I feel my body feels good, feels strong. Left leg is a little numb because I'm sitting cross-legged in this chair. And, it's just probably not the best angle of my spine and whatnot. Intellectually, yeah, likewise stimulated. I love having these conversations. I think the subject matter is just so important for our times and so vital. And the fact that we get to live it with the young children at our school makes it that much more engaging. Emotionally, yeah, feeling really good. Got to see my brother today with his girlfriend, and we had a great time. Very nice day together. So I feel very emotionally full. And spiritually, yeah, I feel connected. Feel the heart was the image that came to mind for me. So I feel connected spiritually.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I can go. Physically, I feel like my face is really warm. Maybe there's a lot of sun today on the hike. I don't know, but so it's making me almost feel like a little bit light in the head, which was when I was doing the breathing. Maybe that had to do with some of the tingling feeling. Emotionally, no, I missed intellectually. Intellectually, yeah, I think stimulated is that was a really great word. I resonated with that. I feel very tuned into active listening and end up sometimes staring at the screen and really trying to listen and process. Emotionally, yeah, also just feeling very content with relationships and both here in this space and in the space physically that we're in with family and friends that are here. So feeling supported in that way. And spiritually, really grateful for these conversations because I feel like they so often draw me back to certain values and meaning in life that comes through when we're working in education, but really resonate through every aspect of my life. And so when I come back to these conversations, they help bring me back to some deeper meanings and importance that I feel like I know, but sometimes I forget. And these just help to bring those back in, and they're just sweet reminders.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I can go next. Physically, I have tingling in my mid back. I've had for 5 or 6 weeks, seeing a physical therapist and a chiropractic masseuse, therapeutic masseuse, I guess you call it. But it never quite goes away, even though I have lots of exercises I'm supposed to do, and so it makes me want to wiggle a little more than I usually do. But physically beyond that, feeling pretty good. I was so active yesterday, more than usual, packing boxes, and then going to my first tango in years. I've only gone to tango once in 4 years, and I used to do it all the time, and it felt so good. And that's a physical and emotional together, because you connect with new people too, and you're doing it in a physical, really beautiful way, and it felt so nice. And so even though that was last evening, I'm still kind of carrying that good energy about that in my body. Intellectually, I feel a little tired. I have to say, my brain is tired. my brain wants to go on spring break, but it feels like I can't because I have to have until next Tuesday to mark all these papers and put the grades in and then prepare for the next 3 Moodles for spring, the term right after it starts 2 weeks from now. No, yeah, 2 weeks from
Ah,
now. And it just feels like intellectually I'm just feeling resistance to, like, I want to stop. I wish my whole everything to stop for a day or something. And it will, and it does, but it's just still like, I have all this stuff to do. My brain is just like, emotionally fairly calm today, given all the big life change in my life right now. Actually focusing on papers kept me, even though buzzy brain, my emotions felt more calm today. Spiritually feeling grounded and appreciative, grateful also, as Andrea said, of just having a group of people around me, and you and other friends and people I've just been connecting with a lot in the last 24 hours when I'm not working on Moodle paper things. So, and that feels just like, yeah, reaching out and touching the blue sky right now and touching people. And there's a community that I feel I'm part of, and that feels nice.
fantastic. Thank you.
So I guess I will go. Physically, I was very hungry and didn't have lunch yet. But I had a whole glass of a good water, which filled me, so I don't feel hungry anymore. That's interesting. So I'll just go for early dinner. And I used to have for months of my ankle injury, and then my coughs over the winter term. So I feel finally I am like out of all those. So I feel very grateful, which leads me to jumping to emotionally. I feel very grateful to be health-wise well, and just talking about different areas of this and listening to you all. I feel calmer in my heart. Intellectually, I'm really more curious of what's to come, and how this is a real, like a pausing time for me. Like Robin, I still have to go about 50 some long papers, capstone papers, and all the final exam papers. It's still happening very thick until Wednesday. So I'm like kind of stressed out and trying to find a way out at some point, but I know I have to go through it to get all the stacks to disappear. So kind of heavy. However, spiritually, this is a good moment for me for the break, mental break. And also, the more I hear from you all and others, I feel like there's bottomless abyss of wealth of something, not only just knowledge, but a lot of awareness of things that I didn't know before, or I was neglecting to understand better. And now I'm in a place where I feel I'm getting it now, but I know so much more. that I want to go. So I'm like into intellectual curiosity keeps me going. Yeah. Thank you for listening. I rambled, but
No, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, it's really, how often do we really stop and say, how are we doing? How am I doing today? And it's always powerful for me to just hear from everybody. Something opens up for me. So any other reflections on just hearing people check in, or anything about that experience of what we just did?
I really appreciate the honesty that comes up with these types of reflections, because when I hear someone else say something like, I feel tired, or I have some pain, or I'm not doing well, it's like, oh, maybe it gives more permission for others to reflect on that in an honest way as well. And I think that it's okay not to be okay sometimes. And even though right now I'm like, okay, I feel okay, it makes me think of other times where maybe I didn't feel this way, and kind of drawing that understanding of myself in relation to myself at different points in time. So just appreciating everyone being able to listen to others helps me understand myself as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the empathy I think that develops around just expanding like the nuance and complexity of what individuals might be experiencing on a many different layers at any given point in time helps to develop that compassion muscle, or that's something, that thing that's like, oh, okay, like I don't know what you're going through, or if you act out harmfully, or out of anger, it's like, well, there's so many ways that person could be feeling physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, that it's like, oh, and that makes sense. I can see it, how that would happen. Or so yeah, practicing, I think it's good for practicing those empathy, compassion muscles. It's great.
Fantastic.
It feels a little different too when I do it with the four of you. I know all of you, and there's a trust here. When I'm facilitating this in my classes each week, and we're all just getting to know each other, it's at the beginning of the term, it feels really different.
Yep.
And it feels more like I have to hold the energy, or hold the space more for all of them. Whereas with the five of us, I feel like we're a little bit more mature and older, and we've done this before, and we hold the space for each other. So it feels more like just easier.
Yeah, this is an easy container. I felt that it just went boom, right immediately. And but that's good awareness as a facilitator. You're tracking on that stuff. Like, who are these bunch of strangers, or how are people doing? Or you're just kind of tracking and watching. And that's true in a situation as a facilitator where the container needs a little more help. That's the facilitator's job, to give it that extra boost and manage things a little more closely, and make sure that container can take shape, because people have a real natural, really strong desire to connect, really strong. And so, but they need safety to do it. And some people, for whatever their experience has been, they might not be feeling safe at all about talking about how they're feeling with anybody, ever. And so you just be aware of that, so yeah, that's great awareness. But this is an easy container. Any other reflections about the experience? I love doing this. Oh yeah, Jackie.
Yeah, just briefly, I think that openness, like almost voluntary willingness to open our hearts, and like Robin mentioned, it's easier for us when we feel like let our guards go. This is a safe place, and we are here really being honest and open and vulnerable. That's okay. And sometimes when I try to really kind of do like this similar exercises with the bigger class and in the new and in the beginning of the term, I know that there are a lot of kind of skepticism and watching others, and during the whole meditation time, some of our students just never close their eyes. They're they're just kind of really don't know what to do because of lots of reasons, like the music might be better, or they have lots of thoughts happening. Our monkey minds just activate right there. And I learned some students, some people, it's like they are engaged in so many stimulations, so it's really hard for them to let go. So I learned that, oh yeah, that could be possible. So that helped me have a better understanding, better empathy. And then I have to trust the process, that it will be okay to continue this way and to stay there, and allowing that the nervousness or the stranger feelings like those, just kind of leave those that people, my students will get used to it, and then they start to open up as we go. Yeah. I don't want to give up on that, with the same kind of fear, or what if I'm so sounding weird and things like that. I just have to, okay, we'll after several weeks we'll get there. So
yeah, it takes some getting used to. When I was first doing things like this, it was in the men's groups, and a lot of men are coming in. No one has ever asked them how they feel about anything. Like they've been actively dissuaded from having feelings their entire life. And so when they walk in and people start talking about feelings, they're like, what's the trick? There's some kind of trick or something. And so it takes a while. And for a variety of reasons, younger people, anything, there's a lot of active ignoring of feelings, and just a lot of external focus, and not a lot of internal focus, infinite distractions on the outside. And so it takes folks some time. However, it has a critical mass. You'll see, folks a group will kind of wobble for a few weeks, and then suddenly it'll go, boom. It's glorious, man. Once there's enough people, the draw to connect takes over, and then it just has a life of its own. Beautiful experience there. So I want to just a couple little thoughts. We've got about 10 minutes left. Self-awareness was really a difficult thing for me. It was quite a journey, as they say. And what I discovered was that I wanted to skip over that step and say, of course I know myself. Who doesn't know themselves? How can I not know myself? It was like, well, Nick, slow down there, little pal. And I, started realizing that a lot of things I thought I knew about myself, I actually didn't. And that there were a lot of things that were self-image versus self-knowledge. There were a lot of things that I wish that I was, that I wasn't. I wanted to be aspirationally a certain way, or this way, or easygoing, or whatever. And so that was quite a process. So I really put a lot of value in the self-awareness or self-knowledge part of this. Spend a whole time just on the self-awareness piece, because there's so many reasons for it to get skipped over. And like what we talked about, this is an external focus universe. There's literally people studying ways to distract you more effectively while we're sleeping. There's people figuring out how to distract us more effectively, like millions of dollars. So there's some challenges out there as far as engaging in self-awareness, where actually you get something that's truthful and real about that. I just want to talk just a little bit about shadow in like Jungian Carl Jung and the shadow, because that's a pretty significant part of the self-awareness piece, is that if you're thinking in terms of shadow, Jung was saying that there's parts of ourselves that are actually unknown to us. That there are parts of ourselves that we can't see. And that's a pretty far out concept. If you're thinking about it, if you think about self-awareness, it's like, well, what do you mean parts of me are invisible? Well, how can what do I do then? How does that work? Or, there could be elements that are unknown or mysterious. But the other part about self-awareness that can happen is that sometimes we can encounter something that we're uncomfortable with. We do an honest assessment, an honest check-in, and go, uh-oh, I don't think I'm okay, actually. And that can happen. That can easily happen. We can encounter something we're uncomfortable with. We can encounter something that's scary. We can encounter something that we don't understand. And then that leads to a whole other set of things that we need to be aware of. So I just want to read that can come up when we're doing the self-awareness piece that can lead us to skip it and maybe not go as deeply as we might need to go, or just say, "Ooh, I don't want to look at that right now. I'm just gonna declare myself fine and move on." And then we're not, since the self-awareness piece is the foundation of all the next steps and ultimately leading to informed decision making. If we're skipping the self-awareness step because we're uncomfortable or maybe frightened, we're building our decisions on, we're not really building our decision making on very good data. Exactly. So I always want to pause there just for a second. I'm just going to read a quick quote. I got a few more minutes here. This is a quote from a book by Connor Beaton it's a chapter called Discover Your Shadow. So he says, Carl Jung, the eminent Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, stressed that the individual's goal in life, indeed in becoming more self-led, was to aim for wholeness and not perfection, which I think is interesting in light of holistic education. Wholeness. Okay. Jung believes this path to wholeness demanded an individual developed a greater character or more effective approach to life by integrating the elements of the psyche that had been repressed or denied, or invisible. The elements that make up what Jung called the shadow. So I just think that's interesting. That he was talking about wholeness. We're in the context of holistic education. We want to be talking to the whole student. We want to be whole ourselves. And that there's these elements that might be in shadow. I just think that's important that we're including that yes, this is aspirational. Yes, we want to be the best we can be, but to have true self-awareness, we need to acknowledge the possibility that there might be other things going on that might not be fun or might be messy or scary or confusing at first. Okay. Thoughts on that? I'm interested in, that was me talking a lot. Any reflections on, or anything coming up around this idea of shadow?
Even though we say we can't see it, and it's something subconscious or unconscious, I feel like all of our relationships with students or with things going on in our life are mirrors of our whole self, including the shadow. So when things are feeling stressful or uncomfortable or fearful, looking not outwardly like that is making me afraid, but learning to shift it and saying what's going on inside of me and observing where the fear is arising or when and how, and going back, because fear is kind of like that, those thoughts that say, what if, and when those start to arise, as they do, to use that as an indicator, whether you call it a shadow or something I need to look at right now. Those are helpful. And what in my own life, what I find is I can look at them, but sometimes I need to look at them in relationship with a friend or someone, because if I look at them all by myself, sometimes they get more stirred up instead of just seeing them and acknowledging them without getting caught up in their storylines, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Shadow work is hard to do alone. It's just you sitting in the dark, going, It really helps to have someone to reflect with or talk to about it, for sure. Yeah. Excellent. Any other?
I like that. I like how you said, Robin, that yeah, the shadow kind of feeds off this fear that we have about, something, and how like taking the time to just investigate that fear and where it's coming from. I was right there. I was thinking very similar thoughts with you when you were saying that. It's like, and it's, I think a lot of the rash judgments, that we tend to make really make that shadow quite unapproachable. When we say that it shouldn't be that way, or I've gotten over this, I'm beyond this thing, why haven't I completed this yet? Why haven't I overcome, and it's like all those, the self-judgment that comes in, that it becomes unnecessary. It's like you recognize the fear, you recognize that, you're feeding a fear, and then what do? Once you recognize that you've been feeding this fear, or this, whatever it is. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I'm thinking maybe it's like a more not to stay with the dichotomous association in a way that the shadow, the dark side of us, and maybe the fear, and trying to stay away from those all, to I wonder how I could even embrace the fact that maybe this is like what Jack Miller is talking about, the mysterious, indescribable, the spiritual realm of us that sometimes we try to avoid because it's just vague and hard to explain, but other times that's like such a big part of us. So I'm hoping I could really embrace that, like and be more, how can I say, not as a problem, but more positive kind of acceptance. So that will be a shift, but I have to choose to go there to maybe really, with a curious mind, and the lens is more of look into more deeper, rather than avoiding or judging that, I don't want to go there or avoid. It's not. So anyway, I want to have the awareness and the understanding the power, so that I can even like accept and I can manage. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I
Yeah,
really appreciate that mystery word, Young-hee. I think
love it.
you just made me feel like, what if it wasn't, the shadows so dark and scary and like a place I don't want to go, but if it was thought of as this mystery of it's something to look at from this angle and then look at this clue and look at it from different ways, and it's something that is not so easy to see at first, but it's there, and makes it more approachable and maybe easier to accept than to say, oh, I've got this darkness in me that feels negative, but it feels more, I even think about working with students, like wanting them to discover these mysteries within themselves of who they are and who I am, and how that should be celebrated, but rather than avoided. So thank you for bringing that all together.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to write that down. Celebrated rather than avoided, because there's always something valuable. Any shadow work I've ever done, there's something important in there. There's something critical to my understanding of me, the mystery of me, which is an ongoing mystery, by the way. I don't plan on solving it anytime soon. There's always something really valuable in there. That's worth it. It's worth the trouble.
I had an insight one day, I don't know, a year or so ago, that when I'm looking at something visually, you can only see it in all its beauty if there's both light and dark.
Yeah.
You need both. And both are so important to seeing the beauty.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the kind of yin yang, the relationship, because without yin, no yang, and then vice versa. So it actually helps each other to really rebuild more. It's like they're so different, but so supportive of each other. So they need each other. So perhaps the shade side, the maybe my own awareness, that if I'm aware that I have my unawareness there, then I think that's a good thing to be as a first step.
There's a lot of talk about harmony and balance in shadow work. That's a big topic. We're not trying to kick anybody out of the we're not locking anybody in the basement, and we're bringing everybody to the table and saying, what do you got? What are your gifts? So and yes, they need each other. I couldn't agree more. Well, I feel like we could go. This is incredible hearing everybody's insights and ideas and reflections. And I could talk about shadow all day. Maybe I'll put together a shadow topic. I don't know.
Great.
Yeah, because this is an amazing topic. So anyway, that's a side thing. But I'm definitely thinking about that. We could have more time for that. And I'm feeling like I want to be respectful of the time here.
Thank you so much, Nick. I really appreciate you joining us and bringing this topic up. It is, yeah, just a great reminder, really great reminder. These conversations.
Well, I'm really, really, really grateful to be here. And thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. And yeah, well, who knows? Maybe something will come out of it. I'll do a shadow special. Today, the shadow.
For
Brought to you
anyone who's
by-
watching this video later on, join us next time live.
Right.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I forgot about that recording part. But thank
Here, I'll stop the recording right now, okay?
you.
Stop. Sure you once.